little bit about my office. So I'm located at 200 Plandome Road in Manhasset. We're open 9 to 4:45. Here's how you reach us. You can reach us in person, or certainly you can call or online. So what do I do? Other than I send you out bills and collect it. And certainly, and people say, well, you must have a lot of money. I said, well, it's obviously not going to me. I'm still here. I collect for 46 special tax districts, 13 school districts, and I bill 73,500 parcels. Why do I put this slide in here? One of the questions, most frequently asked questions, no matter where I am, is how can I save money on my taxes? It's so expensive to live in Nassau County. I don't have kids anymore. That they already went through the schools. How do I save money? So it's important for you to understand that of that 1.5 billion in tax that I'm responsible for collecting, 13 school districts, almost 1.1 billion is school tax money. And that money is not determined by the town. That money is determined by the Great Neck School District, the Herrick School District, or whatever the school district that you reside in. They vote in May, and they'll decide on a budget, and then that budget is divided up among the 4 classes of properties, of which most of you are most likely Class 1 residential. So what do we do? Obviously making tax payments, questions about bills and exemptions, navigating online payments, obtaining payment receipts, grieving your property assessment, and contacting other agencies. These are, although we are not set up to sit down with you and fill out your form, I will guide you through how to do it, where to find the information, the same as in the grievance seminar. I take you step by step of how you apply either online or on paper, but we are not set up as a tax office to be one-on-one help, although the county does do that. Let's talk about when and how to pay. So the school tax bill is, the levy comes from the Nassau County Department of Assessment. I receive it from the county probably the last week of September, usually close to October 1st. We have to load it into our systems, and it goes to a mail house. So that's why many people are confused and say, well, it was due on October 1st. I didn't get it till October 10th. We do try to get it to you before then, but there's multiple steps of what's entailed to get the bill from the county to you. So it is not actually due until November 10th. And then you can see on the slide I have all the dates. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because I'm mandated, my name is on that check, right? Paid to the order of Mary Jo Collins, receiver of taxes. I am responsible to the penny for every cent that I'm asked to collect, both from the school districts and from the general, which is the town and the county. So if you, whatever the story is, I mailed it and we didn't receive it. I never got a bill. My husband always paid the bills. He passed away. I didn't know I had a tax bill. It doesn't matter. The law does not give me any discretion to waive a penalty. None. It's not gray. It's black and it's white. You're late, I have to impose a penalty. I'm audited. I have to say, well, why did you give, Mrs. Jones a pass when you didn't do that for Mr. Smith? So it's very clear. And I say that to people because automatically on November 11th, Veterans Day, so November 12th of this year, it's 2%. And then it goes up to 3% in December and 4%. And in the case of school taxes, it goes all the way to the end of May when it's 8%. So do the math, and you have a $10,000 bill, 8% of that is $800. Who wants to pay an extra $800 if you don't have to? After that, it gets a little nastier because then it goes to the county. So I can't even take your late payment if I wanted to. So what I've tried to do is be thoughtful about how I communicate with people, about how important it is to pay on time. I have an email list that is growing. I send out reminders so that no one should be in the position that they didn't know about it. They went to Florida, I didn't get the bill. You can sign up for a third party to receive a copy of your bill. Whatever the case may be, I do try to make it so that you don't have to pay me a penalty. That's one way to save money. How can you pay? You can pay online with a credit card or electronic check. And in this sheet that you received, it'll clearly tell you that If you pay by credit card, it's the most expensive way to pay. It's 2.3%. I don't get a penny of that, neither does the town. It all goes to our vendor. If you pay by debit card, I think it's $3.95. If you do electronic check, it's $1.75. We have an after-hours drop box. You can certainly come by in person, although you better have a little bit of time these last 3 days, even though we've extended hours, because everybody wants to wait to the last minute and keep their money so that their money earns interest and not me, or not me, my town. And we have remote sites. I just mentioned that I'm in Great Neck, and I will be there for the general tax and I'm there for every collection, so that if you do not choose to come into the office and it's more convenient, you can pay me that way. Okay, here's why we're here, available exemptions. Some of these exemptions you already receive, but some of them are, I think there's some misunderstanding, and I want to make sure that I clarify that. And some of them won't apply to everybody. So I'll spend a little more time on the ones that are more widely applicable. STAR, that's the largest tax exemption available. It's a state, it's run by the state, and the state will publish what, for each school district, the STAR amount is. So I have a sheet here for this year, and this is the exemption, and I'll explain that in a minute. But for Great Neck Class 1 is basic STAR was $654, and enhanced STAR, which I'll talk about, is $1,654. And it varies across the towns. So there are other towns that it's about $1,000. It has to do with property values, state aid. There's a pretty fairly lengthy calculation that they do to come up with what each district will receive in STAR. So there's STAR, enhanced STAR, senior citizens, veterans, volunteer firefighters, limited income and disability, home improvement, and home improvement for the physically disabled. What's STAR? So many of you in the room probably either already received STAR or have received STAR. It's available as an exemption or a credit. An exemption means that it'll be off your bill. So if your house is, let's call it $1 million. $1 million it's assessed at, and you're available for the exemption, then instead of taxing the amount that they come up with, the formula will be off something less than a million, and it'll be right off of your bill. A credit means you get a check in the mail. Those checks are generally, you should probably receive them by the middle to the end of October. So the next bullet point, annual income below $500,000 for credit and below $250,000 for the exemption. That means the STAR income level for everyone in your home. So if two, a husband and wife are both working, both incomes count. If two brothers own the home, again, it's the owners on the deed, and they'll look at if that's your primary residence. If your income is total adjusted gross income $500,000 or below, then you would be eligible for STAR. After 2015, the state changed it in that anybody who was above $250,000 in income would automatically be moved into a credit. So if you were getting an exemption, that means that you no longer have that option. You will now receive a check in the mail. So if you purchased your home in 2020, regardless if you're making $200,000, there's no option going forward to get an exemption. That's being phased out, not being phased out, but they much prefer you do the credit. And to that end, they have capped the exemption so that $641 or $654. That's the exemption. The credit is probably somewhere closer to $675. The exemption will never go up. The credit can go up slightly with cost of living. So STAR, and again, the information is on your packet, and I also have a separate sheet which you can pick up on the way out. The easiest way to do it is to register online, but you can certainly call them. They have something called the Homeowner Benefit Portal, and I must say their website is very good. I would say that if I were you and you leave the seminar and you call them this afternoon, you're probably going to be on hold for quite some time. I would wait till a little later in the month or call them first thing in the morning. I wanted to mention on STAR, let's say you buy a property, right? And you close on the property and you get STAR, but it's the STAR from the previous owners. Anytime there's a change in deed, you need to notify, even if you sell your house and if you're living in Great Neck and you go to another home in Great Neck, any change in a deed, you need to notify the organizations that are handling your exemption. So if you're considering changing your home into a trust, as long as some parents may wish to have a living trust or the many different types of trust, if the homeowner is still in the home and the beneficiary, you will still get STAR. I had a gentleman come in last week and he had a home that was, his son passed away, his brother passed away, and he was getting this STAR and then he didn't get it and he didn't understand why. And I said, did you register? And he said, no. I said, well, your brother passed away. You need to register in your name and set up an account. They aren't just going to come to you and say, hey, you get STAR. And even worse than that is if you don't bother to change it and all these years go by and you're getting the exemption and you're really not entitled, this exemption or any other exemption, and you weren't entitled to it and they catch up with you, they don't say, oh, I'm sorry, you made a mistake. It's basically you owe us this amount of money because you were getting an exemption that you weren't entitled to. So Enhanced STAR. Enhanced STAR is also run by the state as of this year. It was, you did have to go through Nassau County. That is no longer the case. It is also run by the state. It's available for seniors that are 65 or over, that are in the STAR program. For the credit, again, that's the check. The income level was just raised this year from a $103,700 to $110,700. If your home is purchased after 2015, we talked about you would be getting a check, and it's now administered by New York State. The reason that's important is because I cannot tell you the last 2 years in office how many people would come into my office and I say, help me with Mary Jo Collins, help me with lower my taxes. And I'd look at their bill and I'd make a general, I said, are you over 65? And they'd say, yes. I said, is your income below 103,700? Oh, yes, it's, whatever. And I said, well, you were getting an exemption. So up until this year, you had to apply through the county to have them change you from basic STAR to enhanced STAR. The county didn't automatically say, Mr. Jones now is 66 and he's retired, so his income has gone down. If Mr. Jones was getting a exemption, then STAR didn't know that unless you went through the county and filled out an income verification form and an application. I believe the state said that's ridiculous, so they have now changed it. So as of this year, meaning STAR that was based on your 2024 income tax, adjusted gross income, they will know you qualify for enhanced STAR. I had a conversation with the Department of Assessment and one of my colleagues in the town of Hempstead, and they said, you know what, if somebody is unsure if they're going to get enhanced STAR, but they know they qualify, you can certainly call that number or email them and say, hey, I should be eligible to receive this, but I am told that you don't need to. Maybe it's not a bad idea because we don't want you to leave any money on the table if you don't have to. That's what this is all about. So this is, if you go to the online site, and I'm not going to go through every line, but this is what you will see. This is the Homeowner Benefit Portal. So the Homeowner Benefit Portal can help you with all, if you've never registered for STAR, or you want to get the direct deposit, you want to switch to the STAR credit from an exemption, etc. This is where you do it. And they provide you with instructions on how to set up this account, and you're off to the races. So that's the New York State Homeowner Benefit Portal. Okay, so we have now left the New York State exemptions, administered exemptions, and entered Nassau County. Every exemption I will talk about from here on in is run by Nassau County. Senior citizens. So the senior citizen is age 65 or above. You have to have your property for 1 year. The gross annual earnings, unless you're in Mineola, is 58. Is anyone here from Mineola? Okay, $58,399, and the property must be your primary residence. If you are sitting here and you have a rental property in Great Neck, but you live in Florida or whatnot, you cannot qualify for STAR. STAR is your primary, STAR also, or senior citizens. It's your primary residence. It also applies to STAR, Enhanced STAR. The filing requirements are, there's a few more steps. Unlike STAR, this filing you have to do every year for 5 years. Once you do it for 5 years, 5 consecutive years, then you fill out an affidavit that's notarized, and then it's entered in the system. You don't need to do it any longer. If one person is retired, the other person's still working, and their combined income is above $58,399, you will not qualify for that. A lot of times I give these seminars, and maybe this applies to only a handful of people in the room, but you may all be sitting here knowing of a neighbor, maybe a widow, widower, their circumstances have changed, and I cannot tell you how many people come in to pay that, and I'll say to them, I'll give them the forms, and they'll say, well, my son lives in California, and I said, you could do this online. Like if it's, again, it's spread the word. So you have somebody mention it to them, and we are here to help with any questions, and certainly I'm going to leave you information on how to contact my office. But there's quite a list of things that you need to do, but once you do it, save that for the next year. Nothing's going to change, right? So that's the senior citizen. And why that is important, and for those of you who want to take the information, I do have a brochure that the county puts out. It's important because let's look at that $1 million house. So, well, maybe $1 million is probably too high because most likely that person's not $58,399. Let's say that the house is assessed at $500,000. So if that homeowner income it's a sliding scale from $58,399 down to $50,000. So at $50,000 or below, instead of using a $500,000 assessment, you're using a $250,000 assessment. So 250 times 1.6 or whatever the multiplier they come up with to calculate your school taxes is a lot less than 500 times the same number. So it could be thousands of dollars for some people in higher tax districts. So that's why I say to people, if you qualify, even though you have to go through these steps of filling out this application, it's worth it because it's significant money. Another question I frequently get asked is if I get in, you can either get basic or enhanced STAR. So if you, let's say 1 year, you qualified for enhanced STAR, and now you're 70, a couple years in a row you're getting enhanced STAR, and something happens where your income goes up that year, so now you're not qualified for enhanced STAR. They'll give you basic STAR, and then they'll put you back into enhanced STAR once your income. They're looking at your tax returns every year. So STAR, you only need to do it once. The senior citizen, you need to do it for 5 years in a row. There are some certain things that you can do to if you're close to that $58,399 number. Let's say you're at 60, but you had unreimbursed medical expenses. There are 1 or 2 other things I think that you can deduct. There's special situation if the homeowner is in a nursing home. All of that information is contained in this brochure, and the link that I'm going to point out to the end of the seminar, which will bring you to the Nassau County Department of Assessment website that has a frequently asked questions section. Veterans, do we have any veterans here? Okay, I'm just going to touch about this because you may know of veterans, with Veterans Day coming up on Tuesday. The Veterans is also administered by Nassau County. They have on the bottom, there's a dedicated website, a dedicated phone number, and a dedicated department to our veterans. So anyone who, even if you're a widow of a veteran, you weren't sure if your husband, or in the case may be, your husband passed, the wife passed away, she served, whatever, the Nassau County wants to make sure that you are entitled and you are able to get your exemption that thank you for your service. It does not, actually I'll go into this when I talk about this one. For firefighters and ambulance workers, you have to have 2 years of service, and you have to, it's an exemption on your property tax, and I think every school district in Nassau County recognizes it. After 20 years of service, you don't need to apply every year, but if you're married to somebody and he was a volunteer or she was a volunteer, again, unless you remarry, you're still entitled to the benefit. Okay, so that's the firefighter and ambulance worker. If you have a son or daughter living at home with you and that son or daughter is not on the deed, that does not qualify you for the firefighter. It's only if they own their own apartment or their own home. Home improvement. This is another one that I find is very misunderstood. Not only misunderstood, people I don't think know that this even exists. We have plenty of brochures, and so you don't really need to take notes. But what it does is home improvement gives you a break on your relief from your assessment for any improvement that will increase the assessment of your home from between $3,000 and $80,000. And it's an eight-year decreasing. So let's say you finish your basement, right? So a finished basement is worth more than an unfinished basement when you go to sell your home. If you add a bathroom is worth more than, if you have three bathrooms, it's worth more than a 2-bathroom house. This will all potentially increase the assessment of your home and thereby increases the level at which you're taxed, right? So the county administers this, and in there's a list of, and I've just put 3 here, for instance, adding a bedroom, adding square foot, installing central air conditioning. These are all things that would be seen by the assessor as increasing your assessment. Things that do not, if you're replacing siding on your home, broken shingles, if you're changing storm windows, those type of things, that isn't considered material to the assessment of your home. If you go through a permit process, right? You're thinking of doing something, you're adding in a Cape Cod, you're adding a bedroom, whatever you're doing, you have to file permits, because then when you go to sell the house, you have to have that permit. So the county knows. They may come to see your home, but again, you want to make sure, even if you're thinking of doing an improvement, you can go over to 240 Old Country Road, or you can call them and say, I'm thinking of doing this. How could this potentially impact my assessment? Because they assign a value to a bedroom in Great Neck, they assign a value to you changing a porch into a sun porch and enclosing it, that type of thing. Okay, so home improvement is important. Many times, there's usually 1 or 2 people that said, well, I did this 3 years ago. Probably missed the boat. So if you're thinking of if you did it this year, maybe last year, again, you can always ask. The worst they could say is no, but it is a exemption that's available to you that I think is yet another way that you could save on your taxes. Limited income and disabilities. This is very similar to the senior low-income exemption. It is for property owners with mental or physical impairment. There's a form that you fill out. I don't believe you have to do it every year once you're in their system. It's also meant for lower income, so $58,399. Lower income to the rest of the country, that wouldn't be lower income. Lower income Nassau County is $58,399 according to the Department of Assessment. You can have both if you're getting a senior exemption, or if you're getting this already. Let's say you have a disabled child living in your home. You need to make improvements that could potentially increase the assessment of your home. This is something that there's no age restriction, but there is an income restriction. And I think we also brought those brochures too. And this is very similar, home improvement for the physically disabled. And again, any questions, the Nassau County Department of Assessment is very, very responsive about clarifying what qualifies and what doesn't. So important that I mention these resources. There's the Nassau County Department of Assessment, and they're located at 240 Old Country Road. Email, you can see there, and this is all in your packet. The Nassau County Department of Assessment is different than the Assessment Review Commission. The Assessment Review Commission are that department that looks at your grievance, whether you do it through Maidenbaum, you pay somebody to do it, or you do it on your own. That department, not the Department of Assessment, is responsible for reviewing your challenge. And I'm going to get back to that in a minute. But New York State Tax Department, STAR, and again, in your packet is the link to STAR. My tax office, that's how you get in touch with us. And Nassau Property, that's important for two reasons. How many people have ever been on this site, mynassauproperty.com? Anybody? Oh, one person. Okay. So mynassauproperty.com, and the reason that I bring this up is twofold. Let's say you live on 100 Gristmill, right? Just making that address up. So you would go into the website for mynassauproperty.com, and it'll say, if you know your section, block, and lot, which is on your tax bill, you can put it in. I always find it easier to put the address. So you put 100 Gristmill. If it's Gristmill Road, you leave off road. So you don't put road, circle, lane, drive, any of that. You just put 100 Gristmill. You put Great Neck. It might ask you for the zip code. You have to check a box that you're not a robot, and it'll bring you to a picture of your home. This site is a wealth of information. A couple of reasons. It'll bring up a picture of your home, and you'll say, oh, that doesn't look like my home. Maybe they took it 5 years ago. The picture of the home isn't as important as what is contained in that. You can go in and there's different banners, and you go in and it'll say your property description. And see, do they have you, if you have three bathrooms and they have you listed at 4 bathrooms, well, guess what? You've probably been overtaxed for however long that's happened. You want to make sure that the information they have is accurate. If it is not accurate and it is not in your favor, meaning they say you have more than you do, that's something you want to bring to the attention of the Nassau County Department of Assessment. They may need to come to your home to prove that you're telling them the truth. They may not, but it's something that's worth bringing to their attention. So I am going to take questions. I do have an Instagram and Facebook, and what I've tried to do is make it more informational. This will be available probably in a couple weeks online for exemption seminars. But again, the goal here today is to really spread the word about we do have exemptions in Nassau County, and as New York State residents. My son just bought a home in Connecticut, and I was all excited to tell him about, make sure you get all the exemptions that you're entitled to. Well, there are none. So at least being in a high-tax state/county, there are exemptions, and I want to make sure that people understand what they are.